Man, I don't know what it is with Americans and making the most outlandish, absurd takes I've ever seen in my entire life. It feels like this channel is almost becoming me responding to stupid Americans. But look, I got nothing against the United States. I love the States. I've been there a bunch. It's great. It's right next door to me. However, I would love to keep it that way. I don't know if you've seen anything in the news recently, but apparently the suggestion that Canada is going to become the 51st American state is not a joke. And look, I let this ride for like a week. I thought he was joking. I thought it was all this big gag or whatever to like waste time on Twitter, but it's not, I don't think. There seems to be this weird like inclination that he's going to come and try and put economic sanctions on Canada so we become the 51st state. They went to Greenland to see if they could purchase it. Look, I don't know what the future holds. I do know one thing. There is no way in hell Canada becomes the 51st state of the United States. There's absolutely no way. And not only is there no way, like the way that would actually happen, like there's no way the United States is going to invade Canada, but there's also no way that this would make any sense. And there's no way that any Canadian should want to be part of the United States, okay? And somehow this seems to be an eye-opening statement for some Americans who are beginning to take offense to the fact that Canada doesn't want to be part of the United States. Maybe you got this relationship kind of mixed up. Yes, the United States and Canada have been allies forever. And yes, we both rely on each other for a lot of trade. However, socially, there is nothing that I get more joy from as a Canadian than distinguishing myself from being an American. Getting called a stupid American online, people calling you a dumb American because of our dumb education system. I feel like I'm being lifted from the depths of hell when I get to say, actually, I'm Canadian. Oh my God. Dude, you don't understand. Maybe another Canadian understands, but if you're American, you just can't understand it because frankly, your country sucks. And listen, before you jumped at my throat about that, I'm not saying every part of America sucks. I'm saying the perception of America sucks so bad that I would never, ever want to be a part of it. And I've seen a lot of stuff online. I don't know if it's because the election happened. I don't know if because Canada's government is crumbling, but a lot of Canadians talking about, oh, we'd love to join the United States. First of all, you're a loser. Second of all, I came up with a couple reasons as to why no Canadian will ever want to join the United States. Reason number one, measurement systems. Now look, this is not another rant about Fahrenheit and Celsius. If you want to see me lose my mind about that for like 9 minutes, there's a video I've already made about that. I'm talking about every other type of measurement that Americans use. And for some reason, it's actually not a problem with the imperial system. It's a problem with the way that they measure anything bigger than a yard. The second Americans get to measure anything longer than a yard, they measure it in famous American monuments. Multiple football fields in length, multiple Statue of Liberties tall, the height of the Empire State Building. The second you start to realize how often this happens, the stranger it becomes. I'm not sure if it's because Americans don't know how long a mile is, or if they just have no better way to quantify measurements, but how am I supposed to imagine 300 Empire State Buildings stacked on top of each other? Is how deep the Titanic is in the ocean. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I've never driven the length of an Empire State Building, and I'm not measuring my distances in lengths of Empire State Building, so why would I ever know how fucking deep that is, or how far that is, or how long that is? It makes sense to say kilometers deep or kilometers far, and not, oh, this is about 18 football fields. And I don't understand either, because what if you've never seen these buildings? What if you don't live in New York? It seems like every single monument is a New York reference. Like, what if you're from Arkansas or something, and you don't have any buildings to measure it? You just have to imagine how big the Empire State Building is, and then you have to imagine like 50 of them. It just seems like such a flawed unit of measurement. I don't know. Maybe it's an American thing. Maybe the second that somebody says, oh, this is 10 Empire State Buildings long, your brain like activates and you're like, I know exactly how big that is now. But it's the stupidest thing ever to watch. The second is the healthcare system. I'm just going to be quite frank. It sucks. American healthcare sucks. And I know you're going to tell me that the lines are long in Canada. I know you're going to tell me you have better access to it. You guys have to kill the owners of healthcare insurance companies to try and enact change. Dude, I can't find a more backward system than the American healthcare system. I looked into it after they shot this fella. This doesn't make any sense. And you're probably the only place in the world that does it this way. But you pay healthcare insurance on the basically gamble that you never deal with any odd healthcare issue, because then your insurance provider doesn't cover it. So you're gambling essentially all the time when you're like, you know what, I'm going to see the least amount that I can pay for the best coverage. But how the hell are you going to know what happens to you? You could walk out on the street and get run over by like an 18-wheeler tomorrow and need like 15 different surgeries. You have no idea what's going to happen. Do you just bank that you're not going to get like a chronic disease when you're 70 and like need a bunch of treatments and need to be put on like a ventilator, and then your insurance isn't going to cover it? Or you're just going to pay out of pocket for it the entire time? None of it makes any sense. And the worst part is, I feel like Americans have been convinced that it's a good system because like it's fast. And it's like the only reason it's fast is because like a majority of the population can't access it. Great, you walk right in, you get dealt with. There's like 15 dead people outside the hospital because they can't afford it. Like that is a broken system. I would much rather a Canadian healthcare system that's a little bit slow because it's free to everybody, and it's slow because that means that there's a lot of people that need to access it instead of the alternative where the people that can't access it die. Okay, I don't know. It's really stupid. And the craziest part about the entire insurance process is that your healthcare system overcharges for things that they have readily available. For example, insulin. In Canada, it costs the average person on insulin about $700 a year to get access to drugs that they depend on to live. In the United States, it costs like $3,400 for the average American who needs insulin to get access to it. Insulin is not a difficult drug to manufacture, and especially not in a country like the United States. But the healthcare providers know they can charge a high price for it because the money isn't coming from people, it's coming from insurance companies. So they bring the price up because the insurance company pays it, and they know that if they keep that price increasingly high, then people will have to pay for insurance to be able to get a discount or free insulin. So you are like shackled to these healthcare insurance providers instead of being able to pay for things out of your own pocket because they've jacked the price up so high that the only way that it can be paid for is by another insurance company. So you basically just get like funneled into paying for insurance because there's no way in hell you'd ever be able to pay for any of these processes or any of these medications unless you're on an insurance program. Meanwhile, all of these drugs and a lot of these procedures don't even need that much money. They don't cost that much money. There's just such a huge profit margin being subsidized by insurance companies who have so much money because they overcharge for people who are poor and broke and sick. And you guys all just fucking wake up and go to work every day. I don't even know what to tell you. You think I want to be a part of that? The third reason why I would never want to be part of the United States is the state of Wyoming. Now listen, if you're from Wyoming, that sucks because I don't understand how anybody could live in a square state. It's a perfect square. How, like, do you understand that borders of states and countries represent history, right? Borders were fought, areas were created based on where people lived, based on what was important to them. You can't convince me anything important happened if you were like, oh my God, good thing we fought the Great Square War where we won a border that was a square. Nobody cared. Nobody cared to the point that they literally made it square. Like other states are fine. You know, they have like their little like lines, indent, looks like a subway route. Wyoming is a perfect fucking square. And there's nothing there. There's nothing. And this has been a problem for me for a while, like just particularly the state of Wyoming. Fuck is out here. Like, let's just drop a pin, eh? Let's just check. Go smack dab in the middle of Wyoming. Holy fuck! But I could never, ever, ever be part of a country that has Wyoming. And you might say to me, and this would not be an American take because they probably don't know that it exists, Saskatchewan in Canada. However, one point. There's part of Saskatchewan where it differs off. Something important must have happened there. It must have. Because why would it not just be a rectangle? If it was a rectangle, I would be fine with Wyoming. But it has the little, you know, and that does it for me. That's all I need. This whole 51st state thing has made me realize just how stupid some people are. In particular, some Canadians who I guess think that they're like Trump supporters. I don't even know. Make sense to me. How you could support another like political party leader that isn't from your country that then gets into office and then talks about putting 25% tariffs on your own country. Like, you got to feel like an idiot driving around with like a Trump flag on in like Alberta. I don't know. Anyway, but the real thing that surprises me most about this joke is being proposed by a conservative government. Now, I'm not sure if Americans or anybody really understands Canadian politics, but Canada's political spectrum is shifted to the left of the American spectrum. So our right-wing Conservative Party is more left-wing than the American Republican Party, okay? This means that if Canada and the United States, theoretically, were going to join to become one country, the Republican Party would never win another election. It just wouldn't happen. Every single Canadian province, with maybe the exception of Alberta, would most likely vote for a Democratic Party. That is just the way it works. Even if they're conservative in Canada, on the American scale, they would probably fall under the Democratic Party. So a Republican Party would never win. It just would not happen. The party would either have to move its values or it just would not be able to exist. I find that whole thing very interesting because you just wouldn't want that. You wouldn't want to adopt a country that would slant the entire like political landscape of the United States. And look, let me give Americans, okay, let me give you guys the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it happens. Let's say, you know, economic ties don't work, economic sanctions don't work. You have to invade. I think you lose. Groundbreaking, I know. However, let's think about all the times the United States has made some wild claim to go into a country to spread American exceptionalism, and how many times it has resulted in an outstanding victory for them just because they had larger numbers. It never really ends up working. And I think it would be even more difficult for the American military to go into Canada. Just in terms of being an American, soldier, I think it would be pretty hard to, storm into Toronto and shoot some guy who looks exactly like you, who's, probably somewhat related to you. It just doesn't make any sense to me. There's no actual way that this ever happens. And to be honest, I'm making this video because I'm fucking tired of it, okay? I'm tired of seeing all these people fucking online talking about, oh, Canada wants to be 51st state. Why wouldn't they want to be 51st state? Because if I haven't made it clear through the last 4 videos I've posted, there's some real big glaring issues with the United States that I would never, ever want to be a part of. So listen, before you guys start proposing other countries joining you, why don't you fix your shit? I'm tired of living next to it.